Welcome to Maintainer's Garage. I'm Bags. Today we're going to be flushing and bleeding our entire active handling suspension system on our 2004 LX470. It uses this suspension fluid. I got a few quarts and we're going to flush all the old stuff out and get some new stuff. You have one accumulator and 4 actuators for a total of 5 bleed points. You want to make sure the vehicle, your garage isn't as level as you want it to be, but in the garage is perfectly acceptable for doing this. You want to make sure your vehicle's on a level position, and I'm going to go through it step by step so you understand. And it should take about 2 quarts or a little less than 2 quarts. I have 3 just to make sure, and I'm using the good old-fashioned Toyota suspension fluid that I got from the Toyota dealership. Got it online and had it mailed to me, and we're jam up. So I'll show you the reservoir. The reservoir is located on the passenger side of the vehicle, and we'll get into all that. I'll show you how to do all that. So let's start. Before you start flushing your fluid, you need to make sure your active handling system is working properly. How do you do that? You have to make sure that the system is using a certain amount of fluid. How do you measure that fluid? There are some tick marks on the side of the active handling fluid reservoir, which is on the passenger side of the engine bay. And you either set the suspension at its lowest setting and then make a mark, and then set it at its highest setting and make a mark, or vice versa. And then you count these little marks on the outside of the fluid container. And you need to have at least 7 marks or more between the highest and lowest suspension setting. We are at the highest setting, and we'll check our fluid, and that's why I put this green tape here, so that way it makes it easier for me to see my mark, and I'm not making permanent marks on my reservoir. All right, and I find it easier if you kind of just take a flashlight and go right there. Okay, that's where we are. There. We've done that. Now we need to lower the suspension, which will fill our reservoir up, and then check that. And the reason we're doing it high then lowest, what we're going to do if that checks good, we're going to suck all the old fluid out of here with that fluid extractor, and then put in new fluid. That way we've already injected a whole bunch of new fluid into the system before we even start bleeding. Now the suspension's in its lowest setting. We'll mark our fluid level on here, and man, that's right at the freaking tippy top. So that's the top line, and we'll count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're at about 7.5. So that means we're good. We can start flushing our system. We're going to remove all the fluid out of here first, then add new fluid, and then raise the car back up. And then after we raise the car, we'll start bleeding the system down and flushing it out. You got to squeeze this top and turn to get it off, and then there's a little filter right inside of here. Now we'll just start pulling all the old fluid out. All right, we've got all the fluid we can get out. Now we're going to put our little screen back in, and we're going to fill this up. There's a min mark and a max mark. We're going to fill up to the maximum mark, and this is just Toyota suspension fluid AHC. A little bit more and we'll be at the maximum mark. Oh yeah, just at the maximum mark. Took just a little bit less than a full quart. We'll put the top back on, squeeze this to turn that all the way down tight. Put our cap back on our bottle here before I kick this thing and spill it all over the frickin' garage floor or drop it. Now that our fluid level's at its maximum point, I'm going to start the car, put it at the neutral setting, let the car raise up, get to a neutral, and then I'm going to check the reservoir and fill it back up to the maximum line. All right, the car's in the neutral position, and we're just below the minimum mark. Perfect. And this is basically empty. We could have poured the whole container in there in the beginning. I didn't know that. Just want to make sure. That's all right. Now we'll put our cap back on. Now I'll be setting the suspension to its highest setting. What that's going to do is that's going to drain our reservoir even more, but it's going to fill the accumulator in each actuator. There's one accumulator, 4 actuators full of this fresh fluid. The suspension in its highest setting will turn the car off, then crack the bleeder screw at the accumulator first. The car will start to lower. When it bottoms out, you'll close the bleeder valve, start the car up. The car will automatically adjust itself back up. You can go to each actuator and repeat the process. So with the car all the way up, when you crack the bleeder valve, that one actuator will bleed down and force all the old fluid out. When you get fresh fluid coming out, you stop doing that actuator and you go to the next actuator. Alright, now our vehicle's at its highest suspension setting. We're going to go to the driver's side and start bleeding the accumulator, and then go to each actuator after that. Driver's side of the vehicle. You have an actuator here, an actuator here. In between them is your accumulator, and I'll have my little camera here in a second. I'll show you that under there. We've got a clear plastic tube and a container. Why the clear plastic? When we crack the valve, we'll see the dirty fluid go through this. As soon as we see clean fluid, we can turn the valve off and we know we're done bleeding the accumulator. And then when we do this, repeat the same process with each actuator. The one thing I'll say is caution, warning, advisory. When you crack this, the vehicle's at its highest setting, it will go to its lowest setting. It will not go lower, it will not crush you. You just need to understand the vehicle's going to be coming down on you and not put yourself in a situation to get trapped between the vehicle and the ground. If you have a creeper, if you lay on the ground, whatever you do, just make sure you have enough clearance as the vehicle lowers. It does not crush you to death. Safety tips. All right, let me get my little camera and show you under here, and we'll get into that. And then you need a 10 millimeter wrench. Just behind the driver's side door, before you get to the driver's side passenger door, if you come under the car, that's our accumulator. And right there is our bleed screw. There is our front driver's side actuator. Its bleed screw is right there. Hopefully that's coming in view. Right there's the bleed screw for the driver's side front. This is the rear driver's side globe. Just behind this fitting right here, right there. On the back side, it's right here. The bleed screw for the driver's side rear actuator. Alright, we're at our accumulator. We've got a clear plastic tube hooked up. We're going to go lefty-loosey and hopefully see some fluid come out. And there's some nasty brown fluid. Alright, well we got quite a bit of fluid out and it was still nasty, so I stopped it before, let me see if I can show you this. Yeah, we started filling it up, so quite a bit of fluid came out. So I stopped it before the clean fluid came out so I can top off the reservoir. So always make sure if you think you've taken too much fluid out to stop and top off the reservoir. Okay, we topped up the reservoir, put our suspension into neutral, then put it back up to high to make sure the accumulator's bled back up, and we will go lefty-loosey. Oh yeah, that fluid is much cleaner now. We're done with this one. So tighten it up and don't gorilla torque it. Take our little reservoir or clear tube off, let it drain down, and now we can move to the driver's side front. Before we do that, we want to make sure our fluid reservoir is still between the min and maximum mark, so we'll do that now. Now we're on the driver's side front actuator. There's a little globe. There's our bleed screw. We removed the rubber cap, attached our clear line. We're going to crack this line, make sure that we're not pinned anywhere under the vehicle as it lowers, and hopefully see some nasty fluid. Oh wow, that fluid's pretty clean. So we're done there. That's it. Alright. And done. I mean, that's good clean fluid, no reason to go any further. Now that we've done that, we'll remove this, make sure we're still good on our reservoir between the min and max mark, start the vehicle, let the vehicle auto adjust because we're still at the high setting on the suspension, and as the vehicle raises up, when that's done, we'll make sure we're still on our between our min and max mark, and then we'll do the rear actuator on the driver's side. Okay, now we're on the rear driver's side bleeder valve actuator bleeder valve, and we're just going to crack it, and as soon as we get good clear fluid out of it, we will tighten it up. As you just saw, we got our clear hose came off and we got skeeted with the active handling fluid. People always ask me, why do you use this little camera instead of the DSLR under the truck or any vehicle? That's why. This thing's a lot cheaper to replace than that thing, and my wife will kick my butt if I mess up her DSLR camera. And that just, you know, it happens, folks. That's why you wear safety glasses when you're under the car. That way when that shit squirted all over the place, it didn't get in my eyes, and it just got on the camera and on the car. Now we just got to clean up and get back at it. Okay, we've checked our fluid level. We're okay there. We started the car, got it raised back up, and now we're going to crack this bleeder a second time. And oh yeah, that's really good clean fluid. We're done there. Snug that up, remove the tube. Make sure we clean all this mess up while not smashing our face with this stuff. And we'll go to the passenger side. Now we're on the passenger side of the vehicle. On the rear shock actuator, there's our bleed screw. This is just about 2/3 of the way back on the passenger side rear door is where this is. The front one is, so I can move my big head, right here. The bleeder screw is right up there, and we'll see that when we do it, and it's towards the forward part of the passenger side front door. Okay, we've started the car. We're back at the highest setting. We're on the passenger side rear actuator. We've got our clear plastic tubing hooked up. Hopefully it doesn't shoot off like the driver's side. And we will loosen this up. And that fluid looks pretty darn good. I don't know, hopefully you can see that's pretty clear fluid. We can just tighten this down. Now we start the vehicle, let it automatically adjust to its max height, top off the fluid, and do the front. I keep harping on top it off the fluid because you do not want that reservoir to run dry. That'll be worst case scenario. I mean, I don't think it would, but just make sure you're checking it. Now we're on the passenger side front actuator, which is about middle of the front door. We've got our bleed screw there. We've got our clear tubing hooked up. We're ready to bleed some fluid. Started the car, back to high. Reservoir's good. So we'll just loosen this up and see how much fluid, see how much dirty fluid comes out. I'm trying to make sure I don't get a face full of fluid again. Oh yeah, that's good, clean fluid there. All right, we finished up bleeding that last actuator. I then started the car, let the car raise all the way up in its max, because it was already in high, and after each time you bled it, the car would drop down. When you start the car, it'd level back up. After that, I put the suspension setting into neutral. I let it get down to neutral. The green light at the neutral setting stopped flashing, so I knew it was stabilized. I backed the car up backed out of the garage, down the driveway, and pulled back up to the garage, again, because it's level. And then I put it in the lowest setting. Once it went down low, the green light stopped flashing. I waited 60 seconds. made sure it was stabilized. Then I went up to the neutral setting again. As soon as the green light on the neutral suspension setting stopped flashing, I knew it was stabilized. I waited 60 seconds. I turned the car off. Just checked the suspension fluid level. We're just at the high mark. So we're between the min and max. We're right at the max mark, which is exactly where we want to be. So we got that taken care of. We've flushed and bled our entire active handling system. Hopefully we'll notice some ride improvement here before too long. And just make sure you tightened everything up and make sure that you have no leaks, and then you're done. Thanks for watching Maintainer's Garage. Have a great day.